Evening, ladies and gentlemen. Well, I hope you enjoyed this evening. Some fantastic fights in the main event, and then some real battles earlier on in the evening as well, which I hope you all found very entertaining. But as much as about the fighting, I think this was about Bellator getting back to business in Europe. And 3 events in 1 week was quite an ask, I think, but the team were absolutely fantastic. Really proud of them. I think they did a really good job about getting this whole thing together. We've had 3 very successful events. So they set the benchmark in America, and it was good for Bellator in Europe to be getting back to events. And obviously we've got 1 more to come next week.
At this time, I'll turn it over to the media for questions. Please remember to click the raise hand function if you have a question. Santiago, go ahead.
David, greetings from Amsterdam. Congratulations on 2 very entertaining events, and thank you for bringing back the Bellator European Series. Are we going on a full schedule again here in Europe? And can you maybe share some of the cities that Bellator is planning to go to?
Yeah, well, basically, we came back with these 4 events. This was the plan. It was kind of like a bubble, obviously, here in Milan, and then breaking new ground, which is going to be really exciting in Paris next week. Then, of course, we're back across to America and to the Mohegan Sun for the Cyborg fight on the 15th, and we'll have a few events over stateside. And I think we'll just be getting our heads together after Paris to work out when the next block of events will come in Europe. And, you know, hopefully back in front of crowds and doing things like we used to do.
Did Bellator re-sign with Melvin Manhoef?
Melvin is part of Bellator's roster, yes.
And then final thing for me, David, you have so many elite Dutch fighters on the roster. Do you think a Bellator event in Holland is inevitable? And how long do you think it will take before the Dutch people can give Bellator a very, very warm welcome?
Well, of course, we're very, very eager to get over there. I've looked at Netherlands as a place where we should be. As you say, we've got plenty of talent from there. And I think it is inevitable that we'll be having a live event there. We probably would have had one, to be honest, had it not been for what happened this year. But I'm pretty confident we'll be seeing you over there in 2021.
Andy?
Hey, Dave. A very dominant performance from James Gallagher tonight. How far away is he from a potential title shot or from the likes of a Ricky Bandejas rematch, perhaps?
Well, if you listen to James tomorrow, I think, isn't it? But he's no, I think, that fight, it was very frustrating because it was, I think, the 4th time of asking. But if there was ever a sort of message to send out there, I think that was a very, very dominant display. He had complete control. He was really relaxed. We had sort of different James this week. Very happy, very calm, and but he really delivered in there. And I think if it's not the next fight, it's sooner or later for him. He's certainly coming in, getting the wins, and that's what you need to do. So like you say, maybe about fight, maybe a rematch, but he'll be up there for sure very soon.
There's obviously a lot of work involved in getting these events going on, especially during COVID times. There's been a strong presence in Ireland and a strong focus on the Irish scene for Bellator Europe. Have there been conversations with the Irish government around maybe getting fights back into Ireland?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, as you know, we had an event planned on 3rd of October there, and we were really hopeful we could still make that happen. But I think, as you probably know, it's not just about the country you're in and the rules there. It's actually the flight rules and getting people in and out is presented as much of a problem as the actual rules in the country. So, yeah, I mean, I think, Ireland's done a very good job with this pandemic and, in terms of numbers. But we'll just have to see. I think, as always, we plan to be in Dublin. I'd love to be back there next year, properly with a crowd. But I think, as you saw tonight, it was almost Dublin in Milan, certainly for the top half of the card there. So hopefully we're back very soon.
And last one from me, Brian Moore put on an incredible comeback performance last night. There was a lot of talk, obviously there were things changing with the Paul Daly fight falling out, about maybe Brian being that main event. What was the decision-making process like for deciding on the replacement main event?
Yeah, well, it's never easy, to be honest. We didn't, we don't plan for the main event to go away, certainly right on the last, day before. And we just took a look at the card, and I think, I don't think it was anything against Brian, and he's the fight. It was absolutely extraordinary here in the arena, I'm sure, watching it back at home. but he's just such a strong heart, and it was a great fight. But you know, we took the decision to put Denise at the top of the card with Kate, and I think that was a good decision as well. I mean, you know, that was a great fight. I mean, Denise took care of Kate in 40 odd seconds, you know, and Kate had gone 5 rounds in a championship fight. It was a legitimate main card as well. So, you know, I think it could have gone either way. That was the decision we took on the day.
All right, we'll take a couple more. Jake Smith.
Hi, Dave. I hope you've been well the last few months. Just 3 from me, please. Sort of 3 shows in 7 days is a really big undertaking. How do you assess the way that them shows have played out so far for you?
So could you repeat one more time? I lost you there at the end.
Sorry, yeah. So obviously 3 shows across the space of a week is no small undertaking. How do you assess them 3 shows?
How would I rate them, did you say? Sorry.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, I thought they were fantastic. I mean, really, really good. You know, we had great fights. I mean, looking back, it was really exciting, and knowing you had another event coming up within days, you know. So the event a couple of nights ago on Thursday was absolutely unbelievable. The main card was great. I think we had nearly every fight bar 2 with a finish. Tonight was some great fights. You know, Sinead great in the prelims, and it was I rate them really highly. I think they all were very good and all the more impressive given the circumstances.
Next week, of course, Bellator moved to Paris. Huge card in the making there. Why was it so important for Bellator to be one of the first promotion in France to put on a major show?
Well, you know, I think it's a statement of intent from Bellator, and it was important. We see that as a great market for us. It's been a long time coming. We've been prepared to get there as soon as we were allowed to, and we've gone through all the hurdles to be allowed to put an event on in the country. It would have been great to do it in front of a packed stadium. We still will have a crowd there, which is fantastic, albeit just 1,000 at the moment. But you know, it was just an important milestone, I think, to break new ground, and it's even better to be the first promotion in the country.
Of course, now as well, you're bringing Brett Johns into that bantamweight division, which is already extremely stacked. This was announced yesterday. I mean, what's the plans for Brett? Are we going to go in on the European level, or will it be the American shows we'll be seeing him on?
You know, I think everyone was really pleased with that news. Actually, we got a really good reaction to that, and there's a lot of expectation around him. I think if you look at the way we've handled fighters, there's not a real separation. I mean, sometimes, especially nowadays, geography plays some part in where they fight, but I think with him, you'll see him like all the elite fighters we have over on this side of the pond. They'll be fighting on big European events, but also have the ability to go over to the States and fight against the best over there. But really looking forward to him on the roster.
Donna, go ahead.
David, just 3 from me as well. The first thing I wanted to ask, first off, I've missed you, by the way. We haven't heard very much from you. But the first one I did want to ask was, obviously, the card was supposed to be in Dublin. You would have made, you know, probably give her in around 1.5, 2.5 million euro on the gate. You missed out on that. What exactly qualifies as a success for you guys in the current climate?
Well, you know, there's different revenue streams, as you'd imagine, from in this world, but it's hard. It's hard for everybody, and you know, I think a success for me was getting back to business. First of all, I think, you know, it was important to get the fighters busy as well. And we wanted to do that as soon as we can. And as you've seen how big these events were in terms of the number of fights, we try to get through all of our roster over here in Europe and get the guys back out there. Of course, we lose the gate revenue, which isn't great, but you know, we've got a very big TV presence globally, and it's as important to keep those licensing deals in place and, you know, give the viewers, remind the viewers of Bellator. And so, you know, in this climate, that's the best we can hope for, and I was really pleased with the events as they've gone over the last week.
You had London and Dublin booked when all of this started. Can you talk me through exactly what was going through your head as you were being forced to cancel those events?
I mean, well, it's just chaos like everybody else. I think we looked at the May event in London, and it became pretty clear very quickly by probably about, you know, middle of March, April, that we would have to postpone that event. And then we were looking at events, and I was starting to think, well, Dublin might actually be the first event back for us. And then it got to the summer, and we realized that wouldn't even happen. So it's just been dealing with each problem as it came along, which I'm sure is the same for everybody in the world at the moment.
it wouldn't be me if I didn't ask about Maura Higgins. No, I'm joking. My third question.
Are you contracted to do that?
No, my third question is with regards to this potential crossover fight we've been hearing about. Potentially, Chris Cyborg might, after she defends her title, head over to boxing and take on Ireland's Katie Taylor. If that were to happen, would you be pushing to maybe get that fight in Europe? You know, I would imagine by the time it does happen, it would be at a point in the world where crowds, at least in a small degree, could come back. Would you want to have that fight maybe in Ireland or somewhere in Europe?
Well, I'm always championing fights over here, and certainly that fight will be well received. I think, you know, as Scott Coker always does, he's very open to things that people want to see, and he's got a really open mind for this sort of thing. So he gave, you know, he talked about that as being a possibility, and you know, I don't think it would do us any harm to see her out there in the boxing world as well. But first, she's got that big fight to take care of on the 15th of October, which I think will be fantastic.
Kevin?
Mr. Green, congratulations on running great, successful 3 events. I'm going to hop off one of the questions the previous media member asked. You know, with the signing of Brett Jones and the current Bellator Welsh roster, do you see it in the distinct future you holding a Bellator Welsh show?
Yeah, we'd love to. I mean, you know, there's obviously Wales and Scotland, for that matter, that we haven't visited yet in the Bellator Europe schedule, and they both remain places we really want to get to. I think we've been curtailed somewhat this year, as you'd imagine, from breaking into new territory. But I'd love to see fights there, and the roster, you know, having people from the country on the roster is very important to making the events a success. So, you know, there's no reason why I don't think we could do a very good event over in Wales. So yeah, bring it on.
Last question from me is, listen, the ongoing pandemic has made every employee in any sort of job aspect evolve. Can you comment on your evolution as an executive of Bellator and how it was handling the pandemic?
Well, I can only commend Bellator for just, you know, really sticking to the program. I think, you know, we got our heads down quite early and, you know, made a plan. I think being part of a big corporate organization, you know, we had to do everything by the book, which was the right thing to do. But as much as aside for me, it was important to keep the fighters. I mean, Bellator's got a very good reputation with the fighters and keeping them at the forefront. And, you know, we want to keep the guys busy as well to keep them paid. And, you know, all in all, I think when you look at what's happened in America, Mohegan Sun, and now here in Milan, and of course next week in Paris, I think we've done a good job of, you know, getting back to as close a semblance of normality as we could. And by the end of this year, we should have, you know, not far from caught up with the amount of events we would have had under normal circumstances.
And David, this final question comes from Stuart over at Grassroots Boxing. If crowds in the majority of Europe won't be allowed back anytime soon, would you consider doing a stint of shows in countries that do allow fans?
I think everything's on the table. You know, I think when we looked at where we were going to stage these 3 events, we had to look at all the different factors. You know, we looked at the UK, we looked at Ireland, we looked at, you know, we looked obviously at Italy, and this is where we ended up. And I think you have to bring in all the factors, and it's not so much just the crowd, it's the accessibility for our global fighters being able to fly in and out, and the quarantine laws that come with it. So I think, you know, everything's on the table, and I just want to get back to crowds as soon as we can, wherever we are.
Great. Thanks very much for the time, David. Appreciate it.
Thank you.